The year was 1099. The streets of Jerusalem were slick with the blood of the First Crusade, the air choked with the copper stench of zealotry. Yet while the armies of the church celebrated their butchery above, the Knights Templar descended into the suffocating dark. Guided by a compulsion they mistook for divine providence, they broke the seals of secret crypts hidden deep beneath the most holy of temples. They sought sacred relics to justify their slaughter. What they found was the undoing of creation. At the terminus of the catacombs sat an ancient vault. Within it, dormant since the dawn of time, rested one particular artifact of staggering blasphemy. The Church's Sinai histories refer to it vaguely as a demonic artifact, but occult whispers describe a hungering orb, a fragment of pure primordial chaos completely untouched by the divine light of creation. It was not merely a physical object, but a metaphysical tether to the infernal planes, radiating a dark gravity that preyed upon men whose souls were already fractured by the atrocities of war. Why did the purest knights of Christendom turn their backs on the Almighty? The official ecclesiarchal lore primer propagates a simple, comforting lie. Blinded by greed and with weakness in their hearts, they fell to their knees. They had found a new lord, but the truth of the first heresy is far more terrifying. Wrapped in the agonizing ambiguity of whether the knights were deceived by a demon or awakened to a cosmic horror, when the Templars touched the artifact, it did not speak in roars of hellfire. It whispered in the quiet, undeniable voice of realization. It imparted unholy wisdom and laid bare a horrifying vision of reality. First is the silent tyrant. The act illuminated the utter indifference of heaven. It presented a universe where humanity was nothing but fodder, imprisoned and suffering endlessly for the amusement of a god-tyrant, the demiurge, who demanded blind obedience but offered no solace. Second is the futility of faith. The knights who had endured unimaginable horrors, diseases, and privations in his name realized their sacrifices meant nothing. The tipping point was not a descent into madness, but a chilling, spiteful lucidity. They felt profoundly betrayed by the divine silence. Hell did not just offer them power, it offered them a chance to strike back. Their newfound conviction was immortalized in the blasphemous manifesto of the First Heresy. Look upon the birds of the air and how the Heavenly Father doth feed them. Now look upon yourselves, imprisoned, oppressed, squabbling for meager scraps to quiet the rumbling of your bellies. Your Heavenly Father cares naught for you except that you be punished for disobeying Him. There is no loving God, that is a tyrant, and we demand equality with God. Armed with this profound truth, the Templars ceased to be men of God and became the first architects of hell on earth. To unlock the artifact's apocalyptic potential, a catalyst of unimaginable scale was required. In a frenzy of unspeakable rites, the Templars rounded up the captive populace of Jerusalem, tens of thousands of men, women, and children, and dragged them into the crypts. They sacrificed them all, feeding a river of lifeblood to the starving orb. Gorged on the souls of the innocent, the artifact swelled with dark power until the fabric of reality could bear it no longer. The sky tore open, the earth shattered, the gate of hell was thrown wide, and Jerusalem was instantly consumed in a hellish cataclysm, bleeding the mortal plane into the infernal realm. For their ultimate betrayal, the Templars were not destroyed, they were rewarded. Hell warped their flesh to match the monstrousness of their conviction, transforming the fallen knights into the heresiarchs, titanic, faceless horrors, wielding immense power forever destined to lead the heretic legions in a bloody, eternal stalemate against the God they had forsaken. The most chilling aspect of their mutation was the theft of their humanity. The great helms they wore collapsed inward. As an unknown librarian of Phantom theorizes, the metal visors melted gack over their eyes and mouths, sealing shut and suffocating them in a permanent claustrophobic sensory deprivation, forcing them to see only through the agonizing, omniscient gaze of the demons they now served. Official lore confirms that they became truly faceless horrors. Stripped of human expression, their visages became blank-horned monuments of terror, voiceless conduits that commanded the heretic legions, not with shouted orders but with oppressive telepathic waves of pure malice. With their bodies, the blessed broadswords and lances that had once struck down the enemies of Christ, shattered and reformed. Pommels sprouted, snapping, jagged maws. Blades wept a constant stream of highly corrosive boiling blood, and shields fused into massive, spiked bulwarks of unholy iron. They became walking epicenters of corruption. Wherever a heresiarch stepped, the earth itself died, turning to ash and sulfur beneath their tremendous weight. They had descended into the dark as men seeking a holy truth. They erupted from the crater of Jerusalem as the heresiarchs, immortal, towering warlords of perdition, forever damned, forever powerful, and forever at war with the Creator. To look for the white mantles of the faithful Templars in the modern trenches is to look for a ghost, for that name was irrevocably damned when the heresiarchs were born. The Church scoured the word from the light of God, leaving behind a terrifying new breed of holy warrior known only as the Crusader Knights. These men do not fight for glory. They willingly condemn their own souls, knowing their only path to salvation is a violent death against the infernal powers. If a knight survives to die of old age or illness, he is denied the last rites, cast into an unmarked pit, and his soul surrendered to hell, to ensure no knight ever repeats the first heresy. Initiates are subjected to agonizing physical and spiritual mutilations that permanently bind them to their vows. Their minds are scorched clean by esoteric machines feeding endless streams of holy propaganda directly into their optic nerves. Their poisoned lungs are carved out and replaced with heavy iron tanks that pump oxygen enriched with sacred incense into their blood, while mechanical amplifiers turn their voices into booming metallic instruments of war. In the most brutal trial, their flesh is flayed open so that the oath of penance can be etched directly into their bones with gilded ink, a divine failsafe designed to trigger an explosive death and immediate damnation should their faith waver for even a fraction of a second. Finally, their minds are violently forced open to the harrowing frequency of the divine, leaving recuperating knights babbling prophetic utterances as scribes frantically record the voice of God spilling from their augmented throats. These mutilated paladins do not rest in quiet stone fortresses. They inhabit wandering chapter halls. Colossal mobile monasteries mounted on massive caterpillar treads that belch black smoke and bristle with heavy artillery and weeping statues of saints. They endlessly roam the deadly wastes of no man's land, purposefully seeking out the most brutal, unwinnable war zones to earn their bloody salvation. They are admired by the common trench pilgrims for their terrifying martial prowess, but secretly pitied for they wear the permanent, agonizing chains of the greatest betrayal in human history.